Thank you for that introduction, and it is an honor to be here with these other worthy organizations. The Sarah Peterson Foundation is dedicated to saving lives from suicide, and today is World Mental Health Day. What an appropriate day for us to be here enlisting your support to stop suicide. The Sarah Peterson Foundation was started after the tragic loss of our daughter, Sarah, whose picture is up on the screen. We lost her in 2014 to suicide, and looking at her sweet face, I'm reminded how much her loss affected us, her friends, our community, and how it spurred us all to act. Next slide, please. But hers is just one face among so many others. Last year, 49,000 people lost their lives to suicide in the United States alone. So many faces, so many families, so many communities. The toll was staggering. Thanks for putting up those slides, because we need to keep the faces in our minds. Most everyone listening has been touched by suicide loss, and there's likely someone watching right now who is struggling. Our message to you is that there is help available and that your life matters, and your illness is not your fault. Please reach out for help and know that you can always dial 988 for help with a mental health crisis. Our foundation has a vision of a world without suicide. Perhaps that sounds far-fetched, but 100 years ago in this country, most everyone thought the same about polio, which has been virtually eradicated. The same can be achieved with suicide, because while the diagnosis and treatment of mental illness can be quite complex, the way to stop a suicide is fairly simple. A doctor once told me that there are two things that must be present for a death by suicide: a person who is at that moment of extreme desperation and lethal means. That means if we can identify that person and keep them separated from lethal means, we can prevent a suicide. Here are some statistics. In July 2022, the Harris Organization published a poll describing public perceptions of suicide. 1 in 4 adults in the US have thought about suicide at some time in their lives. 96% of respondents, virtually everyone, said they would take action if someone they knew was thinking about suicide. But only 1 in 3 feel they can tell when someone is considering suicide. That's where our foundation comes in. We want to blanket our community and communities across the country with the training and education needed to prevent suicide deaths. As a society, we attack the public health issue of sudden cardiac death by training people to administer CPR. And we can train people to be able to recognize someone at risk of suicide, use learned skills to keep them safe, and be the bridge to the mental health care that will keep them alive. Studies show that when 15 to 20% of a community is trained to respond properly in a mental health crisis, suicide death rates will decrease. Here in Southeastern Virginia, that number is around 300,000 alert and aware community responders, based on our population of 1.7 million people. That is a lot of training, but we have already started this effort, and this support will help us with resources to bring more life-saving education to our community and beyond. Like the small pebble in the pond, we are starting the ripples that will spread to every shore. We want to replace the faces of those who are lost to suicide every year with the faces of those who were trained to respond and prevented a suicide. Thank you for considering us for your support.